You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Cyberspace, the new frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast First Contact. Its mission? To explore every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. To seek out new viewers and have new conversations. To boldly view what many have viewed before. Welcome to First Contact, the Star Trek The Next Generation intro cast, where three men have watched a thing and then say more things about the thing that they've watched. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This week we are talking about the outrageous Okona. It first aired the week of December 12, 1988. It was written by Burton Armus, Les Mention, Lance Dickinson and David Landsberg, and was directed by Robert Becker. Multiple writers, always a good sign. James, does anything happen in this episode?
The Enterprise takes on a roguish smuggler named Captain Okona in order to help repair his ship. He charms all the crew, especially the ladies, except for Wesley Crusher, who thinks his life of danger and adventure just seems sad. His presence leads to the Enterprise being confronted by representatives of two nearby planets, who demand Okona for crimes against them. Luckily, it all turns out to be a big misunderstanding. In a subplot, Data tries to learn about humour from the worst comedian in the world on the holodeck.
Well, Alex, we had what we considered a very strong episode last week. What did you think of this one?
Well, in keeping with the themes of this episode, I thought that large swathes of it were just a joke. And not a good joke. The sort of joke that Jason Manford tells.
There's a ship struggling in space, it's obviously in need of repairs, and this time the Enterprise decides to help. Do you remember in Symbiosis where there was a ship about to crash into a sun and they were quite annoyed that they had to help? Can't you fix it yourself? But this time, bring him on board. We've got loads of time. Contrasting attitudes from the crew there. Seem very keen to help, when on other occasions, they're generally not.
Well, it's apparently because he's dashing.
Yes, isn't it great that when he comes on screen all stubble and ponytail and says some slightly cheeky things, Picard has to put it on mute to ask Councillor Troy what she thinks of him, and it turns out he's a rogue.
Does it never look suspicious to any of these people when they're talking to them over the communicator that they're constantly having bits of it put on mute? I mean, that would look odd to me.
When they put it to mute, it just zooms in on Wesley's face. But you've got this character, Okona, who he comes across as mischievous, irreverent, and somewhat brazen. So Picard goes over to Troy and asks what she thinks of him, what her superpowers tell her about him. And she say that his emotions suggest that he is mischievous, irreverent, and somewhat brazen.
I don't know what this is for. If the performance was bad, you could say it's the writers really trying to signpost for the audience. But actually, I think Billy Campbell, star of stage and screen, is quite good. You know, you do instantly get that exact Han Solo vibe from him, which is exactly what you're supposed to.
Well, and I mean, all of those sort of descriptions, he's dashing, he's rogue, he's brazen, whatever. I mean, that is just describing Han Solo, isn't it? There is no question about it.
No, he's a freighter captain, implied smuggler, has a way with the ladies. Yeah, let's put Han Solo in with the crew of the Enterprise and see what happens. That could be reasonably interesting, I suppose.
Although he actually comes across more like Dash Rendar, the Han Solo substitute for Shadows of the Empire.
You've just lost everyone. You've lost everyone there.
I have lost everyone. I've gone into Star Wars geekdom there.
I've seen the 6 films, and that's it.
There are 6. So he comes on board several times, I believe. He transports on board and then instantly starts seducing Terry Hatcher. So that's nice.
And she received no on-screen credit for this performance. I wonder why.
No on-screen cred?
And as the script describes her character, the very feminine and graciously endowed Transporter Commander B.G. Robinson, everything she has two of are perfectly matched, coordinated, and move with a wonderful grace that is called woman.
Whoever wrote that script's note, and Gene Roddenberry, if it's you, I hope you're burning in hell right now.
It was Gene Roddenberry. It must have been Gene Roddenberry.
Everything she has two of.
Her bookends are fabulous. So, yes, we've created characters in Star Trek, this very equal future world, just to be sex objects.
Hooray!
Given that Councillor Troy is allowed to wear her cat suit, fine. Why is the Transporter Chief not allowed to wear a really low-cut top?
Yeah, why not? That's what I want to know. Why not?
We should start our letter-writing campaign, but I'm too busy trying to get our Guile back on the show right now. Anyway, so, yes, we've established that he likes the ladies, but then he tries to joke around with Data, and Data doesn't get it. Do you know why, Data? Because you're an android and you don't have a sense of humour. I hate to go all Pulaski on you, but without emotions there are some limitations, and here you say you can't get drunk, which you seemed to get drunk in The Naked Now, but let's not dwell on that.
No, he says not on alcohol. He specifies he's never gotten drunk on alcohol.
Amphetamines, crack.
Yeah, okay, fine. He can get drunk, let's move on. But that leads Data on a journey of self-discovery to discover the true meaning of humour. And where do you go? You go talk to Guinan because she's the sounding board. Don't go talk to Councillor Troy, she knows nothing. What do you think of the use of Guinan in this episode? Whoopi Goldberg is obviously quite charismatic and she tells some funny jokes. Did you laugh at her funny joke?
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. The jokes she told were appalling.
You're android and I'm annoyed. Do you get it?
You see? That's funny. No, it's not.
It's not funny. And I genuinely think you would have to explain that joke to anybody.
She has less of a good eye for comedy than Steve Bennett at Chortle.
So Data goes to the holodeck. Last week, Elementary Dear Data, good use of the holodeck. Let's tell a story in the holodeck about sentient life and what it means to be alive in some ways, an exploration of a science fiction idea. Here, we bring up a bad early 80s comedian. Oh, I don't even know.
Data goes through looking for the type of comedian he wants because the computer's got all the styles of comedian. Generic. All the styles, all the genres of comedians. That was a Stuart Lee reference. Stuart Lee.
1988 is not a world that is completely devoid of smart comedy or even subversive comedy. In the UK, it's certainly post-alternative era. In the US, you know, you've had good comedy. You've had Bill Hicks. Yeah, what do we have? The worst club comedian in the world who's doing Groucho Marx material.
I mean, when he went into the Jerry Lewis impression, admittedly, yeah, I consider myself a pretty big comedy fan, but I'm not that familiar with Jerry Lewis, I have to be honest. It did look like he was having a stroke. I was looking to see if his face had fallen on one side.
I think Data's reaction is perfectly valid. He's not wrong about this, and he basically says, so if I do a stupid voice and fall over, then that's funny. No, it's not.
That's how Lee Evans has made his career, isn't it?
The comedian was played by Joe Piscopo, a Saturday Night Live veteran. Jerry Lewis was to have played the part, which is why they put that in. That might have been interesting. Actually, this was an opportunity to bring in someone with a name and let them do something, let them do their own stuff. Here it sounds like basically comedy being written by people who don't write comedy, and that's problematic.
But what was the point of the Nutty Professor reference? You don't see a person go on stage and just do the Nutty Professor just because it's something funny.
It's a bit like the sort of act you see in clips from New Faces, the sort of stuff that Bobby Davro or even Joe Pasquale were doing in the 80s, where they just make reference to other things, and that's the joke.
Oh, those great names of comedy there. Bobby Davro, Joe Pasquale, Jim Davidson.
This is just so generic. I mean, were people in the late 80s still wearing a dinner suit to do comedy?
And you know, the 80s must have been a terrible time for comedy if comedians just went on stage and made references to things. You don't get that these days, you know. You don't have comedians going on stage and going, "Hey, Jerry Lewis is the Nutty Professor. Do you remember him? Hey, do you remember that? Hey, back then, garlic bread."
But even talking about Saturday Night Live, you know, that early lineup with John Belushi, you've had Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd coming through. You've had some proper funny comedians, and in some ways that's the alternative comedy of the American era. Yet we're still treated to this absolute terrible stuff. It's as if the next generation is stuck at least 10 years before its time.
The alternative to comedy. That joke is copyright Jim Bowen.
But I suppose we shouldn't get distracted by the comedian, although the episode doesn't it? It spends an awful lot of time on this plot because there's not enough plot with a rogue coming on board ship.
No, it doesn't really sort of leap back and forth between the two plots. It does one big long section on one, and then one big long section in the other. Almost as if they don't really relate to each other and have been cut and pasted together.
The whole data plot as well, it doesn't resolve anything in the very end. Basically, Guinan just says, well, actually it doesn't matter. Even though earlier I said it really did matter, it doesn't matter, because there's more to you. And sometimes you say funny things without knowing it, which is actually us just bullying you because you don't understand. But it's fine because it's funny.
Well, at least something is.
Yeah, it's the worst kind of B-plot, where it doesn't tie in at all. And it doesn't have to always, but if it's not going to, by virtue it should be entertaining. And this whole episode is incredibly slight. I just thought it's so inconsequential. I just don't care. And I like some things about it. I do like the lead performance. Billy Campbell, maybe best known as the Rocketeer, he was the second choice for Riker, and they wanted to give him a star vehicle at some point, so this was it. And you can see there are definitely some Rikerish traits in there.
What, and doesn't Riker look pleased when he turns up? It's like his wingman has arrived. Can I watch you? Oh, you bet.
So back to the main plot. Oh, I know, let's have a body farce involving a pregnancy and a stolen jewel. It's just like the Pink Panther.
I think Kato would have livened up the episode, personally. It's hard to work up any enthusiasm about that half of the plot, isn't it?
One ship turns up demanding him. Surprise, surprise, they've got lasers, and Picard's attitude is, we can crush you, puny ants. And you sort of think, oh, good. Prime Directive still in play then? Were the Earth colonies? Was that what they said?
I don't even remember. I remember Picard being a bit of a dick with Riker saying, well, we should probably go to Yellow Alert. It's a bit of an archaic measure, isn't it? You normally seem all for regulations. What the hell's wrong with you today? Why don't we lower our shields in case they fire? All right, prick.
Well, it is the equivalent of threatening somebody with a feather. That is essentially what they're doing by pointing their weapons at the Enterprise.
One father has come to defend the honour of his daughter, who he thinks has been knocked up by Okona, and the other is coming to get a stolen jewel. And they stand there on their rubbish-looking generic view screen sets while Picard puts them on mute.
I'll say this for it. It at least did something a little different with the ending. With the whole thing of he's not responsible for either one. Or is that different? It feels like it's different, and yet at the same time it feels like something that might have already been done in a Next Gen episode in some ways. At least we met someone who didn't just turn out to be the bad guy, I guess. But it was really obvious because of the boy looking uncomfortable constantly.
It is very obvious. All the parts are there for a puzzle to be completed on the screen. You have pregnant young girl, anxious looking young man, and you think, oh god, how could this possibly resolve itself? It's not terrible. It's a little bit flat. I don't really care about any of their plights in particular, but yeah, it's set up, it's paid off, fine, it's competent enough.
You get the feeling that the writer wanted Okona to be this grand message about prejudging a character, but Okona still comes across as a bit of an arrogant cock.
The thing is, everyone is instantly charmed by him. Without him even having to say a word, everyone is, oh, what a guy. It's almost exactly that. He just walks in a room and they all go, what a guy. And he's not done anything particularly to earn that. He's not done anything heroic. He's just a little bit charismatic. And is that all it takes on the Enterprise?
This is 3 bitter men on a podcast.
I've never walked into a room and had anybody like me.
People always throw stuff at me when I walk into a room.
I've not mentioned Wesley Crusher especially. He's not charmed though. What is it with him? I think your life must be sad. You've just gotten too used to leaving. And I don't mean places. What? Does he seem unhappy to you? Do you have to point out stuff to make him unhappy? He seems quite fine to me. I mean, imagine someone just sitting and observing and then just saying stuff that was really judgmental. Can you imagine people doing that? That's pathetic.
But let's not forget that there are some games that Wesley doesn't know how to play. So, to his mind, Okona goes into those quarters with all of the female crew and they just sit and have a bit of a cuddle.
Oh,
it's really quite a sweet-natured episode.
Okay, yeah. I want to talk about this scene where Worf goes to retrieve him, and he's making out with random crew member 65, and then Worf says, "I would like to, but I have my orders." What would you like to do? He doesn't say anything in the lead up to that. It's not, I challenge you to a duel or something like that. What's going on there?
Well, I mean, you assume it's a fight, but the look that Okona's giving Worf isn't, let's fight. It's, you, me, some oil.
We do know that there is a lot of fighting involved in Klingon mating practices, so it may have been a fight and then, a
cuddle.
Yeah. This episode really is very nice and sweet, isn't it? The episode where Worf wanted to have a fight and a cuddle.
And at the end of it all, what have we learnt? We've learnt that because a man comes in and shags half the crew, he's not a bad person, and we've learnt that Data still isn't funny. And we feel that we've really invested now well.
On that note, let's go and find out what other things were in this episode in Quickfire.
Quickfire.
Why does the transporter allow weapons to be beamed over? They beam these weapons over and then they have to have Worf take the weapons off the people. maybe they should invent a transporter which can find the weapons and leave them on the other ship.
Maybe, but, it gives Worf an opportunity to admire Okona's weapon.
Guy walks into a doctor's office. The doctor tells him you need an operation. Guy says, I want a second opinion. Doc tells him, okay, you're ugly too. Boom, boom. And the guy says, this isn't funny. I got cancer. I need to know, can you operate or not? This isn't a place to make a joke. Jesus Christ.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Doctor.
Doctor who?
No, Dr. Pulaski, and I'm not in this episode.
They hire a load of extras just to laugh for 1 minute. How much do you think that cost? Because I really want to know how much it did cost, because the scene was so terrible that I just want to gauge how much money was wasted on an audience of people laughing at rubbish jokes.
I understand that's basically how they make Take Me Out.
Do they have to get paid extra for laughing? Because, they always talk about extras and say, well, they can't speak. They can't have a speaking part. Does laughing count as a speaking part?
I don't think they even laughed out loud, though, because that was a laughter track laid over, because there was far too big a laugh for that size of crowd.
So they all just pretended to laugh.
They mimed laughing.
Just so that they didn't have to pay them.
That's it for another episode of First Contact. It's been fun. Next time we'll be talking about Loud as a Whisper. Until then, goodbye.
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 I have written one joke in my life. But
Go on.
okay. You see, the crux of the joke is you think it might be offensive at first, but it's not, you see. Right, so, why did the lesbian wedding cross the road?
Why?
To get to the other bride. Because you see, for the joke... For the joke to work, there needs to be another bride.
Oh, God.
Have you heard about the sauce that can make you see into the future? It's called Heinz Sight. It's the best joke ever.
I was never a big music fan until the age of 18. I still thought an Aerosmith was someone that put the bubbles into chocolate.
Oh, you laugh at that, but you don't laugh at the hindsight.
Yes.
Okay, well, I've got a completely different joke. Have you heard about the beans that can make you see into the future?